almost want like music to like lead me in and then look at the camera and be like, hello. Okay, you broke the ice. Thank you. Okay, hi, welcome. My name is Crystal with a K, and this is the Effing Spiritual Podcast. Welcome. This is my very first episode, and so you are going to get to know me a little bit better, and you're going to get to know my podcast. You probably know me as Cameron Sky. That is my stage name. And if you're here from other social media platforms, that is maybe where you might have heard of me. I'm a model. I've worked as an adult actress. I am a wife of 23 years and a mom of 4 sons. And I've worked in the adult industry for about 10 years now, almost. And I have done a lot of things from figure modeling. I've done portraiture. I've done all sorts of things. And I am really excited to be here talking not only about sexuality, but spirituality. This is my first time trying to break the barrier between like complete entertainment. I'm hoping to bring not only entertainment, but education, and maybe we'll all experience some enlightenment as we go deep spiritually and as we hopefully go deep sexually too. So, let me first talk about the title of my podcast. It is the Effing Spiritual Podcast, and the effing is a fun little reference to my Mormon heritage, and we used to not say any swear words, and so there are a lot of really funny like replacement swear words. So I like to say I put the effing in spiritual, but we'll get to more of that later. Basically, I want to bring spirituality and sexuality together by talking about the taboo and the sacred, because I believe that the taboo and the sacred are both the same. They actually both mean to be set apart. And I think that as we come together and talk about our sexuality and embrace ourselves and how we express ourselves sexually, it also is an expression of our spirituality. And I'm really excited to be exploring further into topics not only with spirituality but sexuality and how they intermingle. And I feel like there is a space in the world for my podcast and for me to bring the expertise that I have from the adult industry as well as the experience that I've had, and hopefully we can all explore the spiritual realms together. I am hoping to bring the taboo out of the darkness and the sacred down off its pedestal. And I think it's by learning how to talk with each other about these types of topics that we can normalize the combination of our spirituality and our sexuality, and hopefully take ownership of who we are and what we like. It's my hope that through entertainment and education, we will achieve enlightenment together. And also, hopefully, we will be able to embrace ourselves and each other as we journey through this thing that we call life, which I think is just a big, fat spiritual experience. So, again, I'm your hostess with the mostest, Crystal with a K. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you. So, today is my first podcast episode. I'm going to do this one a little bit differently than probably most of my podcasts, but this one is going to be a little bit more of an update on where I've been, what I've been up to, and hopefully will let you all as my fans know that I'm doing great. I believe that I've been on a spiritual journey since my birth. I was born and raised Mormon. I probably haven't spoken about it before, or if I have spoken about it, it's been off camera. I'm finally to a place that I'm no longer part of that religion, and so I'm not afraid of being found out. I would say that my spiritual journey began at birth. I was raised Mormon. I consider myself I felt like a pioneer growing up. I was born into a family that was a big pioneer family that also had polygamy in it, not in my generation, but in my great-great-grandparents' generations. And that was something that I was pretty proud of, I guess. Actually, it was just like the big pioneer heritage. And I felt like I was kind of a pioneer. I was raised in Maryland and Virginia, and in school, I was the only member of my church. And so it felt really special and unique. And I was a really great student, not only at school, but at church. And so I studied a lot and learned all that I could about the religion and following it to a T. I actually got married when I was 19, and I'm still married to my husband. We have 4 sons together. And so all of my sexual adventures have also been spiritual adventures too, because as I started to explore my sexuality and express it in a pretty public way by being an adult actress, I had to come to terms with the difference between what I was raised and told I was supposed to be like and who I am and the way I've chosen to live my life. That's just a brief overview of my spiritual background. I was born and raised in the Mormon church, and that church is very strict as far as some of the rules that include not having sex before marriage, and they don't drink tea or coffee or alcohol. But I would say that the thing that was emphasized the very most for me growing up was the idea of like sexual purity and, of course, sex only being for once you're married. So I was a virgin when I got married at 19 years old. And as I was growing up, I had also been emotionally and verbally abused by my parents. So I got married, and I thought I came out totally unscathed. However, the abuse has had an effect on my day-to-day life pretty much ever since I left home because of the mental illness or mental health issues that I've had to deal with since growing up with being abused. I have had a lot of people in my personal life as well as professional life asking me where I've been, what I've been up to, and is everything okay? And yes, everything is okay. But I have been through probably the hardest year of my life this last year. I would have to say that it's been a spiritual journey for me for the last year. In January of 2021, I took myself on a spiritual retreat to Mount Shasta. And when I went on this solo trip to the Earth's root chakra, I was going to contemplate my relationship with my parents and what I was going to do, and also I went to think about my feelings towards them pretty much really like on purpose for the first time in my life. I was also raised very, very strict and controlling. I would even call it Orthodox Mormon. And so a lot of the abuse that I received was in the name of religion and religious ideas. And the abuse that I received has been a major factor for me my entire adult life. When I left my home at 18, I knew I had been abused, but I really thought that I had come out of that situation unscathed. I had family members that I knew struggled with mental illness, but at the time, 25 years ago, generational trauma wasn't really talked about, and we were just barely talking about mental illness and recognizing patterns of mental illness just within families. Obviously, I recognize that the trauma that I experienced was generational trauma, and so it's no wonder now to me that people in my family, as well as I, have had to deal with mental health issues for my entire adult life. It's something I've had to dedicate my life to in order to have the quality of life that I am always searching to have. So I have been diagnosed with what's called CPTSD or complex PTSD, and complex means multiple traumas. It means that I wasn't just traumatized once from one event. It was trauma that I experienced from multiple events throughout my teenage years. This condition basically over the last 20 years has been diagnosed for me many different ways, and it's exhibited its symptoms in many different ways. For me, for the last year, what happened is I cut off contact with my parents, and I'm going to be doing another episode talking about going through the process of cutting off contact with a family member or someone that you love who has been abusive, and learning how to set boundaries with that person or people. I experienced what I call or refer to as the death of my parents, and ended the relationship that I had with them in my life last year, the day before my birthday. So it has been a very interesting year since then. After experiencing the death of my parents, it's really interesting because at first I was just grateful to no longer have them in my life. But then I started to experience emotional flashbacks that completely took over my entire system. So it would... These type of flashbacks have totally taken over my system. They are completely physical, and very often it's almost like a nightmare. I will wake up in the nighttime or early morning, completely shaking, trembling, sometimes experiencing pain from the inside, so painful that it makes me cry. All I can do is basically meditate. I have to let my body relax and let these physical triggers like work their way out of my system. Sometimes they come with big emotions, and sometimes big harsh memories too. Since January, I want to say I basically was disabled from these flashbacks. I only ever worked part-time in the adult industry, but I've had to take a step back from that because these physical triggers took over my life. However, the good thing is that even though, I want to say this, these triggers are not only really painful and sudden and completely out of my control, they also are very exhausting. So they take a lot of energy. If you can imagine, like, sometimes it feels like I'm, if you've ever been cold on a camping trip and you've like been in a sleeping bag and you just can't get warm and you're just shivering inside like that, that is what it will feel like for me. And so afterwards it will leave me exhausted. And I've experienced triggers that have left me so exhausted that I've had to just like sleep all day after them. Obviously, my body has not been my own, I guess, for me to decide what exactly I can spend my energy on, because my energy has been spent on what I've been experiencing mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Like I said, I experienced the death of my parents, and then I started to have major flashbacks. These flashbacks, I experienced flashbacks in 2020 that I guess I could say somewhat prepared me for what I have been experiencing over the last year. In 2020, with the pandemic and with everybody being locked down and quarantined, during that time I lost a lot of my supports that I used to do, and a lot of the distractions that I had that kept me from having time to even think about what I'd been through. And so I experienced these flashbacks in 2020 with the death of my parents. I started to have them again, just worse. So I know I've been through this before. I know how to deal with it. I'm very lucky because I have wonderful support. I have family who has been able to be home and take care of me for the last year. And I have an awesome therapist. But I also feel that it's really important for me to share my story. I want people to know that they're not alone if you're dealing with trauma from your family, if you've experienced hard times, any sort of trauma, or if you're struggling with your mental health. Just keep going. I'm here. There's lots of resources here. I'm hoping to be a voice for people to know that it's okay to struggle. It's okay to deal with mental health issues, and you're still strong. You're not what happened to you, and you need to have a voice. So I'm here to help teach some of that too. Shorter answer is everything's okay. I am focused as much as always, and probably more than ever, on maintaining my mental health, my physical health, and my spiritual health. So where am I now? Well, I was always part-time in the adult industry. And since I've been dealing with so much emotionally and physically, I've taken a break from performing in the adult industry. However, I am super happy to be able to be using my creative energy for really cool projects that I've been working on. If you follow me on social media, you've probably seen me post about my courses. And the first course that I ran was my self-love crash course. It was a small, intimate group, and the participants got to take a very deep dive into self-love. And teaching this course and preparing it really helped take me into a deeper place, getting to know myself. Another thing that I experienced over the last year and a half, right, not long before I experienced the death of my parents, I also did major surgery. I had a Brazilian butt lift and did lipo 360. And part of my recovery from the surgery was I experienced amnesia from the anesthesia. So a lot of the work that I had done, especially my mental health work that I had done over the past few years, I would say that that was like the thing that was lost the most. And I've had to relearn a lot of the things that I previously had learned. One of the interesting things about having amnesia is that I had repressed memories from growing up. As I've been working on regaining my memories, I have regained a lot of my experiences from my childhood and my teenage years, which has sometimes been great and sometimes been not so great. But during the course of the Self-Love Crash Course, it was a 14-day, highly intensive, deep dive into the practice of self-love. And by showing up every day for 14 days, it creates a habit of self-care and self-love. And what that crash course prompted me to do was, like, after I finished the Self-Love Crash Course, I did a project where I wrote down everything that I could remember about my life for each year of my life. So I regained a lot of my memories. Throughout this project, I used my journals that I've kept over the last few years. I used my, they're called chapbooks. They are a printed book for every 60 pictures that you post on Instagram. And then I also had thousands and thousands of pictures and videos that I've taken over the last few years. So I took a really deep dive into remembering who I was and getting to know who I am at the same time. After I completed my project, my remembering project is what I called it, and also after completing the 14-day self-love crash course, I decided to make a new course and make it a little bit more accessible. It's just a 3-day course, and I'm really excited about it. It's called Being an Adult, and it is based off of my idea that I had for a book back in 2019. Back in 2019, before, are we to that point yet? Where we can be like, before the pandemic, when things were great, or more normal. In the days before, in 2019, I had this brilliant idea that I was going to get my life together and learn how to be a boss of my life, and I was going to write a book about it. At the time, I was in major therapy still, and really working on self-care, and was in the midst of not only working on myself, but raising my 4 children. And based off of my experience with that, I have created this course called Being an Adult. And the best part about being an adult is that you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is show up, because it's an awesome course that's going to teach you your value, and it's going to help you be a better version of yourself. So I'm excited to be launching that soon. I have other projects that I've been working on, so I don't have an exact date on that, but you can always go to beinganadult.com and check out the course that my husband has already created and he just launched. It is called The Ultimate Shit Test, and it's a course on masculinity from the most masculine man I know. My husband. So you can go check that out. What am I working on? Well, I would say that the biggest thing that I've been working on over the last 2 years is I have been writing. I have been writing in my journals. I have been writing my podcast. I have been writing blog posts. I have been writing my own history. And I'm currently working on basically like 3 books. So I'm working on the book that was my original idea for being an adult. And then I'm working on a memoir of my life and my experiences as I've worked to learn to love and accept myself. I'm really excited about it because it's not only my story, but truly a love story between me and my husband. As I mentioned, I've been working on a blog that's coming very soon. It's called MILF of Malibu, and that's actually, if you go to milfofmalibu.com, I have one post that's up. It's called Almost Viral. I'm going to revise that post, and I have many more to come. Obviously, here's my podcast. I hope you will stick around and check out my other episodes. I'm going to be talking about my spiritual journey from being a Mormon into a MILF. I'm going to be talking about how to talk with your children about sex based off not only my experience in the adult industry, but with my 4 children, and let you know some examples and some stories about how I've done that. I'm also going to be talking about emotional abuse, and I know that that can be a triggering topic, so watch out for that one if that's something that's a trigger for you. I have felt a lot of censorship, let's call it that, through social media platforms. It feels like almost every social media platform has specific rules that I have to conform to. So one of the coolest things about my blog is that it's all mine and I get to decide what I talk about. I've had a lot of experience, obviously, with sexuality, spirituality, but also a lot of fun things like using cannabis and mental health and some of the more adventurous, sexy stories I might be talking about. A lot of things have happened off camera, or even stuff on camera I think is like fun to talk about, like from the perspective of being on camera. Keep your eye out for my vlog. Keep tuning in. I'm going to be posting an episode every week for this awesome podcast. Let me know in the comments what you'd like me to cover in some of the topics. I might consider your ideas because I already have a bajillion of my own. Where can you find me? You can find me here on Effing Spiritual Podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, join me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, things that you might want me to cover, some topics. And don't forget to check me out on Instagram and Twitter. My handle there is at Cameron_Sky1, or on TikTok, I'm at CameronSky1, and that's Sky with an E, S-K-Y-E. Thanks for joining me. I'm so excited to be doing this. I can't wait to do another podcast, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.